Okay, we're on Menachos Daf in Bais. We're up to Rabbi Pazi. That is about 13 lines from the bottom. Rabbi Shimon ben Pazi. Shimon ben Pazi asked a question. Shiboilas, stalks of wheat, a stalk of wheat. Shivir shlish kaidem leimer. It grew 1/3 before the Eimer was brought. V'akra, and you took it out of the ground. V'shas l'achar Eimer, and then you grew it again. You let it continue to grow after the Eimer. V'haisifa, and it grew more. So mahu, what's the din? Now we learned before that the Eimer is mater from hashrasha if it was mushkif. So there really should be no issue here.
Right, because it was mush.
It took root before then. Not only did it take root, it grew a third. It's just like a
fully
mutter.
grown.
However, we're going to see, and the Shita Mekubetzes points out that din of Mushav Kedem La'imer is only if it stayed in the ground, but not if you took it out. If you take it out and you plant it again, this could be something new. That's really the Gemara's question. Is this something new? So do we say Basar Ikar as Linan? You go after its initial planting, and Visharya Eimer, the Eimer was Materit. Oidilma, or do we say Basar Teisefes as Linan? That you go after what it increased. Vad Shiavi Eimer Haba. And you have to wait until the following year, the Eimer. Interesting question. I mentioned this before, that these things they remind me of this difficulty of if you cook something, Michael ben Jusai, for Shabbos, on Shabbos, so that's the chiyuv. Then if you continue to cook it from Michael ben Jusai till Kol Bishulai, the Rashba writes that you chaya for that also. So the problem is that where's the line?
The buck stops where?
Where's the line? How do you have two? Is it cooked or not? What do you consider cooked? So here, okay, it was a giyashlish. So it's not the same thing, but then you planted it again and it grew more.
Is there something about a shlish?
Oh yeah, there is something about a shlish. If it's less than a shlish, then it's considered shachas. Shachas is like hay. It's considered hay, and
so you're getting
then we won't consider it like the ikr was the main thing. So it really did grow a substantial amount, and now you're planting it again. And the question is, does this new planting does this have significance that it's not mutter? The Eimer, you see, we're not allowed to eat the grain before the Eimer. So this grew after the Eimer. The Gemara suggests, Tifshat le mihada amar Rabavo, amar Rabbi Yochanan. We can answer this, possibly, from what Rabavo says, in the name of Rabbi Yochanan. You see where we are?
69b3.
69b3. We didn't turn the page yet. We will in a moment. Bavel was a student of Rabbi Yochanan, contemporary also. He was in Kisrin, I think. Bavel was in Kisrin. And Rabbi Yochanan was in Tveria. And we want to give an answer here. We say, Yalda shesibcha bezakena. If you have a young tree, now the rule is that the fruits of a young tree, you have to wait 3 years. So you have a young tree, uva peris, and it has fruits on it. Then you take this branch of the young tree and you graft it onto an older tree, and you let it grow many times larger on the older tree. So afilu haisif b'masayim, it's still aser. So on the first wide line, if you follow in the Hebrew, Orla is batal 1 in 200. If you have 200 apples that are not Orla and one that is Orla, you'd be allowed to eat all of them.
If you don't know which one it is.
You don't know which one it is.
You got mixed up.
Here...
Not b'mezid,
right.
b'shoyer.
Right. So,
if it's
no. Right.
b'mezid,
Then it doesn't work. Maybe possibly midrabanan, but so here I have the beginnings of a fruit, and I let it grow 200 times its size. On the new tree, on the old tree, it's like the new coke.
the new graft.
it's on the older tree. It grew much more. So do we say that it's bottled? The Orla part should be bottled 200 times. We don't say that. Now, what do we see from that? What's the main part here? What it grew at the original. So if we say the main part is the original, then let's go back to the stalk of weed that was planted before the Omer. You uprooted it and planted it again after the Omer, and it grew more. So we'll say the main part is original. So what we said by Orla is l'chumra, that the main part is the original, it's Orla. We'll say by us, the main part is the original, it's l'kula, that it's mutter. Okay. But Amar Rab Shmuel bar Nachmani, Amar Rab Yonasan. Shmuel bar Nachmani says in the name of Rab Yonasan, similar thing. Batzel shesaslu bekerem, planted batzel, onion, in a vineyard. V'nekar kerem, and then you remove the vineyard, or it got removed. Afilu haisif b'masayim, even if it grows in a permissible state, which means without the vineyard, there's something called kalaya kerem. Kalaya kerem is very strict rules of kalayim. See, normally kalayim is seeds, any sort of mixtures of plantings. But kalaya kerem becomes asr ba'ana. It's similar to arla. If it's in a vineyard, kerem is a vineyard. So here you have this onions that are in a vineyard, and the vineyard gets removed. So now it's permissible. But the problem is it grew when it was forbidden. So afilu haisif masayim aser. Even if it continues to grow after the vineyard is removed, 200 times what it grew before. So you could say maybe that it's but we don't say that. We say the main thing is what it grew before, its initial growth. And so if we say the main thing is the initial growth, so we'll go back to the Omer, and we'll say everything grew before the Omer. What grew afterwards is nullified to the first part. So we have an answer. The Gemara says, Hi gufa kami ba'ilei. This itself is the question. Notice, we knew this, and we nevertheless asked the question, because what we knew was that this was the halacha. But why was this the halacha? Was it 100% obvious that you go after the initial growth? And it doesn't matter if it's strict or more lenient, and hence by us it would be mutter. Or maybe maybe the rabbis really had a doubt, and that's why in that case they were strict. But they're not lenient in our case. In other words, why did they paskin like that? Is it because that's the rule, or is it because they wanted to be strict? What's the difference? The difference is, can we be lenient by going after the initial growth? Teku. We don't have an answer. Okay. Boy Rava, I believe. Boy Rava, yeah. They adjusted to Rava. Le'inyan Meiser Mai. What would be regarding Meiser? We're talking about you planted something and then you take it out and you plant it again. Hechidami. What's the scenario? Kegain. For example, Damdino va'asrino v'shaslino v'hisifalo. You see, Meiser is normally taken after all the grain is taken out, and they put it into a silo, and they smooth off the top, and then it's chayiv and meiser. Here, they didn't do that. It's still in the stalk. So when it's in the stalk, you don't know how much grain is actually inside. So you would have to estimate how much it is. So you took meiser through estimation, which is not really what you're supposed to do. But that's what you did. You took meiser through estimation. And then you took it and you planted it again. You planted it back in the ground. And it grew more. So, im timtza loymar, lo yaslin and basar ikar. If we say that you don't go after the first part, and what grew afterwards is nothing. It's not really considered an issue. I'm sorry, lo yaslin basar ikar. You don't go after the first part. What grew afterwards is very significant. And you have to take meiser again. But tesefes ba yasurei. And you have to take meiser on what grew the second time. So ikar mai. What about the first part? You have to take meiser off the first part again.
Why would you have to do that?
Well, we're going to see that when someone plants something, when someone let's say he grows his crops one year, he takes meiser off everything. Some of it he eats and some of it he uses as seeds. When he plants it again and he grows new crops, he has to take meiser off everything. What about the seeds that were put into the ground? Is there anything remaining from that meiser was already taken from, that you're exempt? The answer is no. You have to take meiser again fully.
Because the seeds rot and everything goes.
That's because the Gemara is going to discuss the seeds rotting, but we're going to have cases where the seeds don't rot, and garlic things and all that. Garlic, I think. So those things that just you put one thing in the ground and that one remains, just it's larger. I know I put some ginger in the ground recently. It's sprouting. The initial ginger is going to stay there. It's just going to get
the root will get bigger.
Yeah, it just grows like more little.
Ginger is a root.
Yeah. It's just going to grow more pieces. So if there was a meiser issue there, and I took meiser because I already did a harvest, now I put it back in the ground.
You put meiser on ginger, it's royal machal be'ema.
I don't know, Kaplan. I don't know. I don't do the meisers in Chutz La'aretz. But in such an instance, so the question is, this new, what grew new, makes a chiyuv on meiser on the initial thing as well. So here, I had something in the ground, and it grew. I had something in the ground, and I took it out, and I took meiser off it. Now I put it back in the ground, and it grows more. So does the new growth make the chiyuv on meiser on the initial, on what was already taken meiser from, but was replanted? So Amalei Abaya says, "Ma'ishlam mikol chiti v'sari da'alma." Why is this different than any sort of wheat or barley? You put it back in the ground, you have to take meiser 100%. You don't say that, no, there's the old grain that's still here. So Amalei. This is Rabbi, right?
Those would be very popular seeds. You could market them to farmers.
They're exempt from meiser. So Rava tells back to Abaya, Davar shazara kala lamibayli. I'm not discussing things that rot, that you have to take meiser 100%. Elakika mibayli davar she'ein zara kala. My question is things that don't rot. Okay. What's the din? So tifshal emiha. Answer the question from the following. Damar Rabbi Yitzchak, Amar Rabbi Yochanan. Rabbi Yitzchak says in the name of Rabbi Yochanan. You see how significant Rabbi Yochanan is. It's mamish like every...
He lived many years.
Yeah, that's what it says. It says Rabbi Yochanan Zakkai lived 120. Does it say Rabbi Yochanan lived... I know Rabbi Yochanan dies when
this Rabbi Yochanan is not Rabbi Yochanan.
No. Rabbi Yochanan Menachem, it's the brother-in-law of Rish Lakish. When Rish Lakish dies, he asks to die also, or they ask for him. He's not able to learn with Rabbi Elazar ben Padas.
There was also a problem with his son, Rish Lakish's son.
Really? I know Rabbi Yochanan had a very difficult life. He lost his parents,
Lost his children.
and he lost 10 children.
But he could not live after.
After Rish Lakish
He
passed
could
away.
not live. He
Could live
Right.
without his sons, but he couldn't live without a chavrusa.
זה חברות אמיתותא.
Yeah.
זה.
Right.
Yeah, but Rish
Very good.
Lakish used to keep his blood running. He wasn't. He didn't give him an easy ride.
Right.
That's what he said. I need somebody to tell me that I'm right.
Right. That's what the Gemara says. That's right.
Yeah.
I know I'm right.
I need to get my blood running. Rish Lakish came
Rabbi
from
Yochanan-
a gangster background.
Right. Rabbi Yochanan was the one that was very beautiful. He sat outside the mikveh. Women should look at
כן,
him.
ואז הוא מעיד את זה, אני אתן לך את אחותי שיותר יפה ממני.
So, Amar Rabbi Yitzchak, Amar Rabbi Yochanan, litra batzal. Let's say there's a certain measurement of onions, shetiknu, which shetiknu over here means that Meiser was taken. It was fixed. Meiser was taken, vizarai, and you planted it. Misasha lefi kulei. You have to take Meiser on the whole thing. So here also, you plant it again. You have to take Meiser on the whole thing. If there's a new chi of Meiser, so that what's initially there, you have to take Meiser again. So the Gemara says, Hasam hainus riyasei. That's the normal way of planting it. And that's the normal way that it grows. Here, hachalav hainus riyasei. Over here, you didn't do it in a normal way. This is not a regular case where you would need to take Meiser off the whole thing. Here, Meiser was taken, you put it back in the ground, it grew a little more. This is not the way you plant. Amali Rav Chanina bar Minyumi la Abaya. We have another issue here. You want the English or you want the traditional?
What's a Queen's English?
Queen's English.
Shakespeare.
We're holding exactly at the beginning of the page. Amar Rav Chanina bar Minyumi. He says, Rabbi Chanina bar Minyumi says to Abaya, Atzit sheina nakav mahu. What about a pot, a flower pot, that doesn't have a hole in the bottom? The Gemara says, Eily nakav, Eily nakav. If it doesn't have a hole, so it doesn't have a hole. What's your question? It doesn't have a hole. We're discussing about meiser, if it's attached to the ground, you grew it in a flower pot. And here it's a flower pot that doesn't have a hole. So the Gemara says, Dilma chazer v'nakfu. You must be referring to where it grew initially without a hole, and then you made a hole in it, and it continued to grow. So the chi of meiser was really after the hole. So the first part was not chayiv in meiser. Dilma chazer v'nakfu ka'amri. So. So what's the din here? And the din is can you take
הנקב, הוא מחבר אותו לאדמה.
right? The question is, can you take meiser from this pot on the whole thing? Rashi learns, Rabbi Gershon learns that there's, can you take from one side of the pot that has the hole on the other side of the pot that doesn't have the hole? Rashi learns can you just take meiser from this without dividing it up? Just meiser straight. If you say that you don't go after the main thing, that you don't go after the initial thing, so then it's all chayiv and meiser. So you can't take from the initial thing. Basically, you have here mixed up. You have mixed up. If it's there's a rule, you're not allowed to take menachiv ala pater or menapater ala chiv. You can't. They both have to have the same obligation. Okay, so he's asking a similar question to what Rava asks. Rava's question was when you replanted it. So the Gemara says no, that's not That's not going to be comparable. Why? Because hacha chadas riyahi. Here you planted it. You didn't uproot it. You just made a hole in it. So it was only one planting. So yichaburihu dekamechabra, and the whole thing was attached. You just attached it to the ground. Va'ila, and it continues. Hasam shteis riyasnin. Over there you planted it twice. So over there it's possible that are you chayav again on the new growth that comes afterwards? So we're saying that you can't compare these two questions. One is when it was continuing to grow the whole time. One is when you uprooted it and you planted it again. Okay. Boy Rabavo. Now we have a question from Rabavo himself. Shiboiles shemarcha bekri. You took the stalk. You put it into the silo. You smoothed off the top, which that's the chiyuv of Meiser. B'shasla. And you planted it back in the ground. V'karal Hashem b'mechubar. And then you called it truma or Meiser while it's attached to the ground, in the ground. So it's in the ground that you called it, that you designated it as truma. Now this is very odd because normally only when the produce is finished do you make it Meiser or truma. Here it was finished. You put it back in the ground, and now you call it truma in the ground. So mahu, kivan demarcha tavlala. Once you did that smoothing off the top of the silo, it becomes tevel, and it becomes chayiv in truma. Tevel is the word for something that's obligated for truma to be taken, to separate truma. So kikar al Hashem kachala. So therefore, when you say that it's truma, it actually becomes truma because it was already chayiv in truma. Oidilma, or maybe kiven the shasla, because you replanted it back in the ground. Pakala tavla mine. The tevel status left, and it's not even considered tevel because it's growing in the ground. When's it? Tevel means that you're chayiv to take truma. Here you're not chayiv to take truma because it's planted in the ground. You only chayiv when you're finished the whole production, and here it's not. It's still growing. So now that you took truma from something that has no chiyuv, so what did you do? Nothing. In other words, the truma that you took, is that considered truma? Truma has special halachas. A zar can't eat it. Like, what did you do? What was accomplished here by calling it truma while it's still growing? So, Amri lei Rabbanan la Abaya. The Rabbanan tell to Abaya, Im kain, if you say that it's going to be truma, matzinu truma b'mechuber lekarka, we're going to find that there's a possibility for truma to be attached to the ground. B'tanan, and it was taught in the Mishnah, lo matzinu truma b'mechuber lekarka, that we never find truma attached to the ground. So it can't be truma. So Amar lei Abaya tells to them, probably should be Amar lahu, because it's the Rabbanan said. Amar lahu, he said to them, Ki Tanyahi, when did we learn in that? Tanya? When was that taught? Tanya is usually a brisa. Bishaya pick in the he says in his humility, he says, in my little knowledge, I don't know where this Mishnah is. So it must be a brisa. So when was that brisa taught? L'inyan echiyuvi misa v'chomesh. That's talking about not that it doesn't become truma, that there's no truma, something that's attached to the ground. There could be truma that's attached to the ground. You can't be chayiv for eating truma that's attached to the ground. What does it mean chayiv for eating truma? A zar, a non-kohen, is not allowed to eat truma. If he eats truma that's attached to the ground, he's not chayiv. Not that it's not truma. Could be truma, but he's not chayiv. Why is he not chayiv? To eat talish v'achil, because if he takes it away, he uproots it and he eats it. So talish is, so it's not attached to the ground. Right? If he takes it and eats, it's not attached to the ground. V'i gachin v'achil, and if he bends over and he eats it while it's attached to the ground, so batla daite etzel koladam, that's not considered eating. it's considered an abnormal activity, and it's not counted. The literal translation is his mind is nullified to the minds of all men, and that's considered a crazy act. That's not considered a normal act of eating. Gemara says, "Maishna midiksiv apinkas adelfa." Why is this different than what was written in the notebooks of Ilfa? Ilfa was a friend of Rabbi Yochanan. They both went to business together. Remember the story? It's in Rosh Hashanah, I think.
On the wall.
Right, they're by a wall, and they hear something like, "Let's knock this wall over on these two people." And then the other voice says back, "No, one of them is supposed to be very great." So Rabbi Yochanan turns to Ilfa, says, "Did you hear anything?" He says, "No." She says, "It must be me." He says, I'm going to go back to the yeshiva." So he went back to the yeshiva, became the Rosh Yeshiva, and Ilfa continued in business. But Ilfa was very, very smart, and when he came back, he surprised Rabbi Yochanan as the Rosh Yeshiva. He says, "I know much more." He has this statement. He says, "If you can't remember this," he says, "If you can't."
He said he knows much more. Or
He says, "You can ask me anything," and
If not, he'll drop down from the.
He'll drop down from the mast of the ship.
right. And they asked him. I forget. We learned this. I think we learned this Gemara. Well, they asked him a question. I forget what the question was, and he proved it from Mishnah, from Rabbi, that he found the source for it. Okay, so we have on the notebooks. Why is this different than the notebooks that what's written in the notebook of Ilfa? That beitzin nevelas oif atar miktasim b'chutz miktasim b'fnim mimifnim mitamin begadim abeis abliya mib'chutzim mitamin begadim abeis abliya. Let me explain. Normally, things that are tamei, if a person touches it, he becomes tamei. There's an exception to that. The exception is a kosher bird that dies without shechita. If you touch it, the person doesn't become tamei. He only becomes tamei if he eats it. How does he eat it without touching it? So let's see, he puts it on a stick and he puts it in, he swallows it in the back of his mouth and he swallows. The moment of it swallowing it,
So it's without
when,
shechita.
yeah, it died without shechita. It wasn't shechita. The moment he swallows it, he becomes tamei and his clothing become tamei. Okay, so what happens? The eggs that are inside the bird. There's a whole discussion in what's the status of eggs that are inside the bird. There's a discussion about if they're flacic or not. Depends on the stage of development, because the eggs are paras, right? When it's still inside the bird. So here, we're discussing about an egg that's in middle of being laid. I don't know the grammar there. In middle of being lain, and the animal dies. The bird dies without shechita. It's like halfway in, halfway out. So the person is going to eat from it. So the rule is like this. We say that if he eats from inside the bird, if he eats without taking it out, then it's metame his clothes. What does that mean? He's sticking his head into it, or actually, he's not touching it, right? Or maybe he is, but it doesn't matter. He's sticking his head in and he's eating it from the inside. It's okay, people eat chicken like that.
No, Rabbi. Nobody eats chicken like this.
Or he's eating it, or he takes it out and eats it. So the rule is, if he takes it out, so then his clothing is not tummy. But if it's inside, his clothing is tummy. So, if it's still inside, it's considered part of the bird, and its clothing become tummy, and he becomes tummy. His clothing become tummy. What we're saying here is that you just said that someone that leans forward and eats off the stalk that's growing is not chayiv because that's a totally abnormal behavior. That's not considered eating. Hey, you tell me that is matame begadim, that is eating. So the Gemara says, Talosh avidi inshi da'achli, hachi. But however, b'mechuber le avidi inshi da'achli. We're using the same term, that is it attached or is it detached? But one of them is growing from the ground, and one of them is a piece of chicken, something that's on the plate. So something that's growing from the ground, I understand that's attached, right? And so no one leans forward and eats like that. And they have the eggs that are in the chicken that are also attached. But that's not growing from the ground. That's in a plate. That's a different story. So yes, it's possible for someone to eat like that. That's more normal than eating from leaning forward and eating off the stalks that are growing. Okay. Amar Rav Tivumi Bar Kisna Amar Shmuel. Hazireya Kalayim Ba'atzit Sheina Nakav is Aser. Someone that plants Kalayim in a flower pot that does not have a hole on the bottom. It's understood that if there is a hole, it receives its nutrients from the ground. If there's no hole, then it doesn't. So it's considered kalayim. Amar Abaya. Abaya says, I don't think Abaya says to him, but because he would be earlier. But Abaya says, Bishleim yashminan. Maybe not. It would make sense if he's telling us loike makas mardas, that he gets malchus for it. Midrabanan, right? Midrabanan. Then shaper. Then I would understand what he's telling me. However, Ella Aser, the fact that he tells me that it's forbidden, my kamashmala. What is he coming to tell me that it's forbidden? The Midrabanan Havizriya wants to tell me that rabbinically it's considered like he planted it. It's considered rabbinic planting, even though it's not attached to the ground. Tanina, that I learned in a Mishnah. Torah mishe'ena nakav ala nakav shuma v'yachsav yitchum. If someone takes shuma from something that's grown in a flower pot without a hole on something that's grown in a pot with a hole, so it's considered truma. In other words, it has a sanctity, but you didn't help for the other grains. You have to take truma again from that. So of course I understand that it's rabbinically considered planting, because it was you called it truma. If it wasn't rabbinic planting, then it wouldn't even be called truma. So just to tell me that it's considered kalayim rabbinically is not telling me anything. If you tell me that you're getting malchus, then you would be telling me something. Okay, that's where it ends. Let's see, we have a new Mishnah here. Hachitin, the wheat. Vasairin, the barley. Vakusman is spelt. Vashibayla shul is oats. Vashifain and rye. I translate it just the way it's commonly translated. Probably don't have a clue. but that's the way it's been accepted. Harei elo chayav b'chala. All of these are chayav in chala. Chala means that if you make a certain amount of dough, you have to separate some of it and give it to the kohen. One of these Jewish comedians said, "Don't shout challah in a crowded matzah bakery," or something. But the funny part of that is that they do shout challah, because challah doesn't just mean bread.